I started teaching for real in 1986. I had 4 years of experience down in Pincher Creek, Alberta, and moved in 1990 to Okotoks, Alberta. I started teaching at Good Shepherd School. I was there for 2 years as a junior high teacher, and at the beginning of my third year, the end of my second year, they announced the opening of Holy Trinity Academy. So it'd be 1992, the school was set to open, and as I was one of the existing staff members teaching junior high, I was slated to become one of the first high school teachers. So I started off in 1992 teaching high school math and a bit of science and I think one language arts class as well. Over a period of time, I saw a lot of evolving and changing. In the early years, I taught computer science as well as the math and the science and that sort of thing. And as the school grew, as Holy Trinity developed into a bigger, more viable school, my position started to streamline. So I got out of the computer science, less language arts, in fact no language arts, even cut out most of the science and moved into the math area. So for the most part, I became a math teacher. It continued to evolve because soon after that, as Holy Trinity moved, in 1992 it was combined with the elementary school. And 2 years later, when we had our very first graduating class, we moved into a brand new facility. And because it was going to be separated into a brand new facility, they added a vice principalship position. So I was at Holy Trinity for 2 years as a teacher, mostly of math, and then became a vice principal. And I probably taught 60% and administered about 40%. And again, most of that would be math, along with any other responsibilities that came with the administrative position. In the early years, our school was it was different. It was really such a grassroots situation. It was incredibly small. Class sizes of 15 and 16 were fairly common. We'd have very small sections of the high school courses. If you split up into, at the time it was Math 10 and Math 13. Now it's 10-1, 10-2. But we'd have 2/3 of the students in Math 10. And that would amount to maybe 20 students, and then another class of 11 or 12 students who were in the Math 13. So there's a real struggle in that regard, but we had a commitment to making sure that we had Catholic education and making sure that we were going to attend to the needs. So we withstood those challenges of really small class sizes. When I say challenge, I mean the financial challenges, because that was very, very difficult for the school board, but they committed to it. It was a different situation too. It was the first time that Catholic education was offered in Okotoks. So there were a lot of people moving into the school who didn't fully understand the context. Sometimes, to be completely honest, there were students who came to our school because it wasn't working out in the school that they were at, or they had been kindly invited to leave the other school. And so we had a lot of growing pains in terms of challenges with students who didn't know where they fit in, or possibly didn't make a real effort to fit in. Had challenges with staffing. Because we were young and teachers have a scale of pay that's based on experience. We hired only young teachers at 4 years experience. I was one of the old ones on staff. I had a lot of experience, relatively speaking. And so we had a very, very young staff, and with young staff comes mistakes sometimes and growing pains with that too. I think it all worked out. In fact, our success in history would suggest that it worked out really, really well. But there were challenges back then. And of course, over time, Holy Trinity has changed just tremendously. I haven't been involved with the school directly all of that time, because after about, I think it was 8 years, 10 years, something like that, at Holy Trinity, I had been in administration for 5 years, 1 year as acting principal, but eventually moved on to Good Shepherd, where I became a principal there. So it was back to the original elementary school. But I've been peripherally involved at Holy Trinity, or with Holy Trinity, this entire time, either as a feeder school or in more recent years as a senior administrator. I'm now an associate superintendent with the school division. So I've been witness to, or at least slightly involved with a lot of the growth, and it is amazing. You know, back in the day, Holy Trinity opened up, and I think Hans Willicke would probably be able to correct me on the actual numbers, but we probably opened up as a 7 through, not probably, we did open up as a 7 through 10 school, but with probably in the vicinity of 110, 120 students when Holy Trinity first opened its doors. And now, instead of 7 through 10 or 7 through 11 and 7 through 12 as it developed, Holy Trinity is now strictly a high school. It's 10 through 12 with, I think it's 856, 870 students, something like that. So tremendous growth. It now has a really considerably strong reputation as a great academic institution, a great faith institution. Sports teams are really, really quite accomplished in every single regard. So as a school, it's really developed, and it's seen as what's definitely the leader in our school division. Sometimes the term was thrown out, the flagship school, and our former superintendent hated that because it seemed to suggest that there was a hierarchy. There isn't a hierarchy, but there certainly is a lot of history, tradition over these last 22 years. This is the 23rd year of operation of Holy Trinity, I think. When I look back at my experiences at Holy Trinity, one of the real highlights was coaching teams. And again, especially in the beginning stages, we were quite small, and our teams were not strong. We were scouring the hallways trying to convince people to try out for a team, and we ran all of the teams anyways. So my personal experience was coaching volleyball and finishing up the season and going straight into basketball season and coaching that. Several years early on, I helped with badminton. It's not my forte, but helped with the badminton. And then I got really involved again with the track and field. And success was hard to come by in those early years. We were small. We weren't experienced. I think for the first few years, part of our experience was that students who had been really successful on sports teams, etc., in the public schools tended to want to stay with the success, and so we had to develop some level of expertise and some tradition and history before we started to draw people for our sports teams. I stuck with coaching there through till about 1999 or something like that before I moved to Good Shepherd School. So earlier I said I was there for about 10 years. It was probably more like 9 years with Holy Trinity. But since that point, I coached an awful lot at the junior high level and elementary levels, but I've seen the teams at Holy Trinity have just completely taken off. Really successful in every regard. They'll have a slow year, but the following year it usually comes back, and overall they've got, I can't even imagine, probably 40 or 50 banners in their brief history. When I look back and consider the times that I spent directly involved with Holy Trinity, there are a number of highlights. It was a tremendous opportunity for me to be involved in the development of something that just really didn't exist. So everything from helping to form the first clubs and helping to form the first sports teams, helping to come up with the team logo and name and that sort of thing. That was left to a few people because, like I said, small staff. Not everybody was coaching, so on a small staff of, I think originally something like 12 teachers, probably about half of them did the coaching, and another half would be really focused on academic clubs and whatnot. I overlapped with both as a math teacher and a coach, so I had an awful lot of opportunity to be involved in the development of many things. Helping to develop policy was a big thing that I look back at fondly now. Not so much then, it was a lot of work. I think of some of my fondest memories, just the staff and students. There are probably about half of that original staff are still around, and I can still consider them friends as well as colleagues. But even the ones who moved on from that original staff, for the most part, I keep in touch with at least a little bit. And it's gratifying to see that there are a number of students from those very early days that I still have an opportunity to connect with on occasion. There are about 3 or 4 students that I actually play basketball with to this day, on some occasion, and a number that I'll be able to run into occasionally.